And our first guest is Randy Shaw, the editor of Beyond Chron, which is online, and also very much involved in the Tenderloin Housing Clinic, which provides housing for homeless. But it's your editorial hat. You know, we see the Chronicle, as it tries to be more regional, it becomes more and more bland and uninteresting. And your Beyond Chron, which we list as a link at our site, is producing some very good stuff. Now, it may be biased, but at least it's quality writing and interesting stories.
Well, it's interesting. Someone once said to me, well, you know, a lot of your articles seem to have opinions in them, and, you know, instead of just straight news. And I said, well, you think the Chronicle doesn't have opinions? I mean, the New York Times, journalism has opinions. It's just they're masqueraded in other things. And obviously, when you read the Chronicle news and how they cover various events, there's certainly opinions there, and there's slants, but they're not as obvious.
You know, it's so interesting in this city. I hear the left saying that it's biased towards the right, and we think it's so biased towards the left. I don't mean necessarily right as in right wing, but just different points of view in terms of government role and all that. Okay, enough of that. So why is it that it can look so different to both sides? It's the same product.
Well, you know, I'm surprised at how many people look at the editorials of the Chronicle and make assessments on that instead of their news coverage. So as long as you see an editorial you don't like and you think it's one way or the other, and the Chronicle does have a spectrum on their editorial page on national issues. They're very critical of George Bush and on Iraq and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, the more local the Chronicle gets, the more pro-real estate development, the more aligned they are with the mayor, although they've been more critical of the mayor recently. So people can always find something to dislike, but I'm always surprised that people will take umbrage at an editorial instead of our big concern with the Chronicle is their slanted news coverage and what they decide to cover and what they don't cover. That's really what's alarmed us.
And the degree to, you know, the degree of presenting both sides of a story, which requires a lot of homework and a lot of tape recordings and phone conversations to build your story. I mean, good old-fashioned journalism.
I'll give you a great example. You know, the Chronicle on December 31st, a Sunday, had a big headline front page story on a Sunday paper saying that San Francisco's entered a new golden age. And the only people they quoted was Charlotte Maynard Schultz, Jim Chappelle from Spur, a Spur board member, and a man who moved here from North Dakota. No one from labor, no person of color, on and on, no one gay and lesbian. And that's their sense that there's a new golden age.
Wasn't that almost
that was a news story?
I know, but wasn't that almost a bizarre story? I mean, even they had to know that they had crossed the line.
But that became a front page news. That was their headline lead Sunday end of the year news story. It wasn't like
I only read it online. You mean the newspaper itself?
Yeah, the newspaper was the headline, new golden age in San Francisco, and they have a picture of Charlotte Schultz now. So yeah. You know.
But now, hasn't the Examiner and the Chronicle traditionally, historically, had that kind of bias? I mean, that was not unusual in the past.
Well, I think that what's happened in the Chronicle, you know, and you saw this particularly in the Newsom-Gonzalez mayor's race, is that the editorial views so color the news coverage that they run stories in the news section to support their editorial position. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens too frequently from my perspective. And that I think we've sort of, and that's an example of, you want to declare something a golden age, you quote no one who's representative of the city. You quote only, you know, the elite business class and the Pacific Heights crowd, and that's the assumption.
So that's more of an opinion, kind of a Insight magazine, San Francisco magazine type story.
Right. How do you decide when you say you're going to quote a variety of views? The reporter decides who they're going to quote and what those quotes are going to say and where they're going to be positioned. I would call that the kind of opinions that we're accused of at Beyond Chron.
So it's not a golden era?
No, I don't think for everybody. It's certainly not, in fact, in many respects, it's not a golden era, and I will have an article on that at some point. But in a lot of respects, it's not a golden era. They're just excited because they see Rincon being built up real high, which I'm not sure how that even benefits a lot of local residents.
But it does bring up the whole question of housing, and this is a topic that you write often about. Let's talk about that. Do you adhere to the same view that we are creating extreme number of high-end condos that are often fractionally interested? You know, people only own 6 interests and they live here for 1/6 of the year, or
if that,
or it's a second home which they write off on their taxes. So that it's doing damage to the city enough that you would, let's say, stop any further development, and there's been talk of a moratorium on any high-rise condos. I mean, I've heard that talk. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I mean, I think you have to look at the project and what you can get out of it. One of the things that people realize, and it was interesting to hear Ron Dellums in Oakland say this in his announcement when he became mayor, he said, hey, we have to have economic revitalization because that funds services. And so, to the extent you can get a lot of benefits to the community from certain development, then you want to make that
so
deal.
you wouldn't oppose the Rincon Towers if it resulted in a very high percentage or unusually high percentage of inclusionary housing, that is lower end housing,
I think
required
one of the problems,
of the developer.
Yeah, I think we should be careful about building housing that no unit's going to sell for less than $1 million or $1.5 million or $2 million, because then you're really not housing anyone living in San Francisco, and it's not providing any first-time home
But the market
ownership.
decides the price, doesn't it?
Well, no, not when you're building certain kinds of housing that's sort of designed with certain features that's going to be an upscale thing. I mean, we sometimes confuse the word market rate, but there's still stuff being built in the south of the market that sells for $600,000 new.
But you're not opposing, well, the market rate means whatever people
Right.
will pay
But when
for
you're in a
whatever.
hise tower with panoramic views
Yeah.
and you have certain
You
finishes.
oppose that?
Well, I'm saying you'd have to look at how many of those you build using up land space, and you have to look at the deal. They made a deal in Rincon. Chris Daly got $46 million in community benefits. So that was, you could say, a good deal. You don't want to have too many of those because it crowds out the ability to build housing that, again, the Palm's a good example at 4th and Freelon. That's housing that a lot of people buying that, they're going to live there. So you're adding to the housing supply instead of places that are going to sit vacant while people just, when they come from Singapore, are going to go into Rincon for 2 weeks a year.
I hope you, because I consider you to be one of the rational thinkers in the city. You're not saying that you would support a moratorium on
No,
certain housing.
I'm not saying a moratorium is obviously too
I mean,
blunt
mandated,
an instrument.
like Prop M,
You have
which
to do a
limits the number of square foot of office we can build per year to 500,000.
Well, we've never hit the limit in Prop M.
But I know, but that was passed by
I
the
would say this: we need to look at project by project basis, what projects make sense and what don't, and that's the only way you can.
But
do
who
it.
makes
And,
that decision?
well, eventually the Board of Supervisors ultimately makes that decision, and I think they've made some good decisions thus far in striking that balance. And that's why we mentioned talking about Trinity Plaza, because there's the most important housing project to be built in San Francisco in at least the last 50 years, and the board has delayed this thing. 2 supervisors for 4 months.
And I will get to that in a moment, but why would you trust the board to make the kind of decision you were just talking about, like what we should build, when they can't even decide on Trinity Plaza, which provides how much rentable, brand new rental units?
1,900.
Many of them protected for the existing tenants. Tell us all the different packages and why they voted or stopped it.
Well, actually, what's happened at Trinity Plaza, the Planning Commission unanimously approved the basic essence of the project last August. And then the problem was trying to get it calendared, and the Land Use Committee is in charge of it. It's a land use issue. And there's the only 2 supervisors out of the 11 that have a problem with Trinity Plaza happen to be in the Land Use Committee. And they dominate it, and Supervisor Maxwell, who's chair, would not let it come to a vote. They delayed it, and she's with McGoldrick, and neither one of them supported the project.
Well, let's stop for a moment. The project, why we're talking about it, is because it's such an amazing project.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
It's such a classic example of a win-win for everybody. Just break it down quickly.
What's amazing about it, it's 1,900 new units at 8th and Market, which desperately needs revitalization. It's 60,000 square feet of new commercial space. Of the 1,900 units, 360 are rent-controlled units, the first new construction rent-controlled housing in California and probably in America. And we're getting 15% inclusionary on top of it.
Now, for those viewers who don't understand, we'll keep using the word inclusionary.
Yeah. It means 15% of the 1,540 other units will be affordable. So we're talking about, first, to get any rental units built is amazing in this city. And although, rental units at a revitalized corner, rent control protections, all the existing tenants are going to get significantly better units at the same rent they're paying now.
And why can 2 supervisors, this is the scourge of district elections, 2 supervisors outside the district of what we're talking about, mid-market, have such power to freeze this project after so many years of negotiations?
That's a really good point. And it's a long story. To make it very brief, it was a certain timing issue and around the election and this and that. It's an outrage what occurred.
What do they say is their reason?
Oh, it's not affordable enough.
In fact, I don't want to hear their reasons because I think it's
ridiculous.
There's something going on beneath the surface.
Let me just say this. Sophie Maxwell let Lennar Corporation walk away from a commitment to build 400 rental units in Bayview, and yet she says there's not enough affordable housing at 8th and Market. When Angelo San Giacomo, with no public money, is building the biggest rental housing project in the history of San Francisco.
So
no
what's
public
really
money.
going on?
It's personal vendettas. Daley did not, who's the main supervisor involved with Trinity, did not endorse Sophie Maxwell, and so he endorsed one of her opponents. Daley has a big McGoldrick's been very jealous of Daley's success, and so to prevent Chris Daley from having a victory, remember Chris was in a tight re-election battle, So they didn't want Chris to look good before the election by getting Trinity passed and getting all this positive press. So they held it up out of spite against Chris Daley.
This is unbelievable, and that's what I imagine. I knew there was. I heard of another personal vendetta, but I'm not going to bring it up. That was a scenario of why this was happening. Again, this personal vendetta that apparently also is involved at Hunters Point. I mean, there's a lot of egos involved in Hunters Point as well. I don't want to get off of that for a minute because I guess I want to stay with the housing and go back, for example, to the eastern neighborhoods. Let's talk about that. Let's get your take on that. And we got 3 minutes, about 5 more other questions I want to ask you, real quick shotgun ones. The eastern neighborhood debate, how do you stand on that debate where they want to pile 65% of the housing would have to be middle?
It didn't get any attention. The Board of Supervisors passed a resolution that everyone can live with. So
they watered it down. End of story.
They made it more logical. They didn't water it down. They made it more logical.
Right. I've heard that, and so let's go on with that. I hope that my article helped that. You don't think Hillary's going to run for office?
No, I think Hillary is going to look at the numbers and see that Obama is going to be so popular that she's going to have a hard time finding votes. Between Edwards and Obama, I think, take up the whole field. I don't see a place for her.
You've had you made other projections and predictions for 2007 and beyond. Maybe we could take a couple of them. What do you think about the mayor's race in San Francisco? How is that going to work out?
Well, the only person who major candidate potentially run against Gavin is Matt Gonzalez, and if I had to bet, I'd say he probably would run. I think the question is, given the strong support the mayor has among labor and in the gay and lesbian community after the gay marriage thing, it'd be very difficult to defeat him, I think.
And what do you think? How do you evaluate the performance in terms of housing and building new housing and so on? Not homelessness, please, because I don't want to go in that area yet, or not today. But generally, you've been critical of the mayor for various reasons.
Yeah, I think the mayor, he's sort of shifted. Originally he was opposed to a lot of the inclusionary stuff, meaning more affordable housing linked to private development. Then he supported a reform of it, which increased the numbers. So I think the mayor has kind of moved in the direction of trying to get more affordable housing. Although, there's still the problem. The planning department continues to be that's a story that doesn't get covered. The massive delays at planning. Planning is no better and more efficient now than when the mayor took office, and it's something he needs to put some more attention to.
Fast tracking, there's no fast tracking that anyone can count on. There's no way you can make more rapid the pace.
Well, it's still bogged down in the same thing. You file. It takes you 18 months when you submit your papers to get assigned to a planner. We have we have a condo project in the Tenderloin. We desperately need that kind of project. 18 months before it even got assigned to be looked at.
Why?
The planning department really needs they say it's either staff or there's just too many reviews or whatever. You can hear a lot of different reasons. You have to almost have a whole show just on that. But the reality is there's no city that is slower than San Francisco at moving things through the process before there can even be a public hearing.
Is that intentional?
I don't think it's,
to slow development down so that it has
I don't know
full
if it's
hearing?
That or it's just,
Just
residents
incompetence,
they want a lot of scrutiny. They want everything looked at, environmental, shadow.
So it's not just the planning department, it's also the citizens
It might be a combination.
Welcome to San Francisco.
Yes.
Randy Shaw, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. And our first guest is Randy Shaw, the editor of Beyond Chron, which is online and also very much involved in the Tenderloin Housing Clinic, which provides housing for homeless. But it's your editorial hat. We see the Chronicle, as it tries to be more regional, it becomes more and more bland and uninteresting. And your Beyond Chron, which we list as a link at our site, is producing some very good stuff. Now, it may be biased, but at least it's quality writing and interesting stories.
Well, it's interesting. Someone once said to me, a lot of your articles seem to have opinions in them, instead of just straight news. And I said, well, you think the Chronicle doesn't have opinions? I mean, the New York Times, journalism has opinions. It's just they're masqueraded in other things. And obviously, when you read the Chronicle news and how they cover various events, there's certainly opinions there, and there's slants, but they're not as obvious.
It's so interesting in this city. I hear the left saying that it's biased towards the right, and we think it's so biased towards the left. I don't mean necessarily right as in right wing, but just different points of view in terms of government role and all that. Okay, enough of that. So why is it that it can look so different to both sides, It's the same product.
Well, you know, I'm surprised at how many people look at the editorials of the Chronicle and make assessments on that instead of their news coverage. So as long as you see an editorial you don't like and you think it's one way or the other, and the Chronicle does have a spectrum on their editorial page on national issues. They're very critical of George Bush and on Iraq and all that stuff. You know, the more local the Chronicle gets, the more pro-real estate development, the more aligned they are with the mayor, although they've been more critical of the mayor recently. So, so people can always find something to dislike, but I'm always surprised that people will take umbrage at an editorial instead of our big concern with the Chronicle is their slanted news coverage and what they decide to cover and what they don't cover. That's really what's alarmed us.
And the degree to, you know, the degree of presenting both sides of a story, which requires a lot of homework and a lot of tape recordings and phone conversations to build your story. I mean, good old-fashioned journalism.
I'll give you a great example. You know, the Chronicle on December 31st, a Sunday, had a big headline front page story on a Sunday paper saying that San Francisco's entered a new golden age. And the only people they quoted was Charlotte Maynard Schultz, Jim Chappelle from Spur, a Spur board member, and a man who moved here from North Dakota. No one from labor, no person of color, on and on, no one gay and lesbian. And that's their sense that there's a new golden age.
Wasn't that almost
that was a news story?
I know, but wasn't that almost a bizarre story? I mean, even they had to know that they had crossed the line.
But that became a front page that was their headline lead Sunday end of the year news story. It wasn't like
I only read it online. You mean the newspaper itself?
Yeah, the newspaper was the headline, new golden age in San Francisco, and they have a picture of Charlotte Schultz now. So yeah.
But now, hasn't the Examiner and the Chronicle traditionally, historically, had that kind of bias? I mean, that was not unusual in the past?
Well, I think that what's happened in the Chronicle, you know, and you saw this particularly in the Newsom-Gonzalez mayor's race, is that the editorial views so color the news coverage that they run stories in the news section to support their editorial position. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens too frequently from my perspective. And that I think we've sort of, and that's an example of, you want to declare something a golden age, you quote no one who's representative of the city. You quote only, you know, the elite business class and the Pacific Heights crowd, and that's the assumption.
So that's more of an opinion, kind of a Insight magazine, San Francisco magazine type story.
Right. How do you decide when you say you're going to quote a variety of views? The reporter decides who they're going to quote and what those quotes are going to say and where they're going to be positioned. I would call that the kind of opinions that we're accused of at Beyond Chron.
So it's not a golden era?
I don't think for everybody. It's certainly not, in fact, in many respects, it's not a golden era, and I will have an article about it at some point. But in a lot of respects, it's not a golden era. They're just excited because they see Rincon being built up real high, which I'm not sure how that even benefits a lot of local residents.
But it does bring up the whole question of housing, and this is a topic that you write often about. Let's talk about that. Do you adhere to the same view that we are creating extreme number of high-end condos that are often fractionally interested? You know, people only own 6 interest and they live here for 1/6 of the year, or if that, or it's a second home which they write off on their taxes. So that it's doing damage to the city enough that you would, let's say, stop any further development, and there's been talk of a moratorium on any high-rise condos. I mean, I've heard that talk. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I mean, I think you have to look at the project and what you can get out of it. One of the things that people realize, and it was interesting to hear Ron Dellums in Oakland say this in his announcement when he became mayor. He said, "Hey, we have to have economic revitalization because that funds services." And so, you know, to the extent you can get a lot of benefits to the community from certain development, then you want to make that deal.
So you wouldn't oppose the Rincon Towers if it resulted in a very high percentage or unusually high percentage of inclusionary housing, that is lower end housing,
I think
required
one of the problems,
of the developer.
Yeah, I think we should be careful about building housing that no unit's going to sell for less than $1 million or $1.5 million or $2 million, because then you're really not housing anyone living in San Francisco, and it's not providing any first-time home
But the market decides the price, doesn't it?
Well, no, not when you're building certain kinds of housing that's sort of designed with certain features that's going to be an upscale thing. I mean, we sometimes confuse the word market rate, but there's still stuff being built in the south of the market that sells for $600,000 new.
But you're not opposing, well, the market rate means whatever people will pay for.
But when you're in a high-rise tower with panoramic views and you have certain finishes.
You oppose that?
Well, I'm saying you'd have to look at how many of those you build using up land space, and you have to look at the deal. They made a deal in Rincon. Chris Daly got $46 million in community benefits. So that was, you could say, a good deal. You don't want to have too many of those because it crowds out the ability to build housing that, again, the Palm's a good example at 4th and Freelawn. That's housing that a lot of people buying that, they're going to live there. So you're adding to the housing supply instead of places that are going to sit vacant while people just, when they come from Singapore, are going to go into Rincon for 2 weeks a year.
I hope you, because I consider you to be one of the rational thinkers in the city. You're not saying that you would support a moratorium on
No,
certain housing.
I'm not saying a moratorium is obviously too
I mean,
blunt
mandated,
an instrument.
like Prop M,
You
which
have to
limits the number of square foot of office we can build per year to 500,000.
Well, we've never hit the limit in Prop M.
But I know, but that was passed by
I
the
would say this: we need to look at project by project basis, what projects make sense and what don't, and that's the only way you can.
But
do
who
it.
makes
And
that decision?
Well, eventually the Board of Supervisors ultimately makes that decision, and I think they've made some good decisions thus far in striking that balance. And that's why we mentioned talking about Trinity Plaza, because there's the most important housing project to be built in San Francisco in at least the last 50 years, and the board has delayed this thing. 2 supervisors for 4 months.
And I will get to that in a moment, but why would you trust the board to make the kind of decision you were just talking about, like what we should build, when they can't even decide on Trinity Plaza, which provides how much rentable, brand new rental units?
1,900.
Many of them protected for the existing tenants. Tell us all the different packages and why they voted or stopped it.
Well, actually, what's happened at Trinity Plaza, the Planning Commission unanimously approved the basic essence of the project last August. And then the problem was trying to get it calendared, and the Land Use Committee is in charge of it. It's a land use issue. And there's the only 2 supervisors out of the 11 that have a problem with Trinity Plaza happen to be in the Land Use Committee. And they dominate it, and Supervisor Maxwell, who's chair, would not let it come to a vote. They delayed it, and she's with McGoldrick, and neither one of them supported the project.
Well, let's stop for a moment. The project, why we're talking about it, is because it's such an amazing project.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
It's such a classic example of a win-win for everybody. Just break it down quickly.
What's amazing about it, it's 1,900 new units at 8th and Market, which desperately needs revitalization. It's 60,000 square feet of new commercial space. Of the 1,900 units, 360 are rent-controlled units, the first new construction rent-controlled housing in California and probably in America. And we're getting 15% inclusionary on top of it.
Now, for those viewers who don't understand, we'll keep using the word inclusionary.
It means 15% of the 1,540 other units will be affordable. So we're talking about, first, to get any rental units built is amazing in this city. And although, rental units at a revitalized corner, rent control protections, all the existing tenants are going to get significantly better units at the same rent they're paying now.
And why can 2 supervisors, this is the scourge of district elections, 2 supervisors outside the district of what we're talking about, mid-market, have such power to freeze this project after so many years of negotiations?
That's a really good point. And it's a long story. To make it very brief, it was a certain timing issue and around the election and this and that. It's an outrage what occurred.
What do they say is their reason?
Oh, it's not affordable enough.
In fact, I don't want to hear their reasons because I think it's
ridiculous.
There's something going on beneath the surface.
Let me just say this. Sophie Maxwell let Lennar Corporation walk away from a commitment to build 400 rental units in Bayview, and yet she says there's not enough affordable housing at 8th and Market. When Angelo San Giacomo, with no public money, is building the biggest rental housing project in the history of San Francisco.
So
no
what's
public
really
money.
going on?
It's personal vendettas. Daley did not, who's the main supervisor involved with Trinity, did not endorse Sophie Maxwell, and so he endorsed one of her opponents. Daley has a big right. McGoldrick's been very jealous of Daley's success, and so to prevent Chris Daley from having a victory, remember Chris was in a tight re-election battle, so they didn't want Chris to look good before the election by getting Trinity passed and getting all this positive press. So they held it up out of spite against Chris Daley.
This is unbelievable, and that's what I imagine. I knew there was. I heard of another personal vendetta, but I'm not going to bring it up. That was a scenario of why this was happening. Again, this personal vendetta that apparently also is involved at Hunters Point. I mean, there's a lot of egos involved in Hunters Point as well. I don't want to get off of that for a minute because I guess I want to stay with the housing and go back, for example, to the eastern neighborhoods. Let's talk about that. Let's get your take on that. And we got 3 minutes, about 5 more other questions I want to ask you, real quick shotgun ones. The Eastern Neighborhood debate, how do you stand on that debate where they want to pile 65% of the housing would have to be middle?
It didn't get any attention. The Board of Supervisors passed a resolution that everyone can live with. So
they watered it down. End of story.
They made it more logical. They didn't water it down. They made it more logical.
Right. I've heard that, and so let's go on with that. I hope that my article helped that. You don't think Hillary's going to run for office?
No, I think Hillary is going to look at the numbers and see that Obama is going to be so popular that she's going to have a hard time finding votes. Between Edwards and Obama, I think, take up the whole field. I don't see a place for her.
You've had other, you made other projections and predictions for 2007 and beyond. Maybe we could take a couple of them. What do you think about the mayor's race in San Francisco? How is that going to work out?
Well, the only person who major candidate potentially run against Gavin is Matt Gonzalez, and if I had to bet, I'd say he probably would run. I think I think the question is, given the strong support the mayor has among labor and in the gay and lesbian community after the gay marriage thing, it'd be very difficult to defeat him, I think.
And what do you think? How do you evaluate the performance in terms of housing and building new housing and so on? Not homelessness, please, because I don't want to go in that area yet, or not today. But generally, you've been critical of the mayor for various reasons.
Yeah, I think the mayor, he's sort of shifted. Originally he was opposed to a lot of the inclusionary stuff, meaning more affordable housing linked to private development. Then he supported a reform of it, which increased the numbers. So I think the mayor has kind of moved in the direction of trying to get more affordable housing. Although, there's still the problem. The planning department continues to be that's a story that doesn't get covered. The massive delays of planning. Planning is no better and more efficient now than when the mayor took office, and it's something he needs to put some more attention to.
Fast tracking, there's no fast tracking that anyone can count on. There's no way you can make more rapid the pace.
Well, it's still bogged down in the same thing. You file. It takes you 18 months when you submit your papers to get assigned to a planner. We have we have a condo project in the Tenderloin. We desperately need that kind of project. 18 months before it even got assigned to be looked at.
Why?
The planning department really needs they say it's either staff or there's just too many reviews or whatever. You can hear a lot of different reasons. You have to almost have a whole show just on that. But the reality is there's no city that is slower than San Francisco at moving things through the process before there can even be a public hearing.
Is that intentional?
I don't think it's,
to slow development down so that it has
I don't know
full
if it's
hearing?
That, or it's just,
just
residents they want a lot of scrutiny. They want everything looked at, environmental, shadow.
So it's not just the planning department, it's also the citizens.
It might be a combination.
Welcome to San Francisco.
Yes.
Randy Shaw, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.